This is my video reflection for the best film ever, The Avengers, for the class Discipleship and Pastoral Care of Youth. So, let's go ahead and get started. First idea, abandonment. This film portrays abandonment in a very unique way. These are not the outcasts or like the marginalized or even the very average people who can be overlooked. I mean, these are the best of the best, the most powerful, the smartest, the most talented, and the most deadly people of Earth. And they are, for the most part, abandoned. Like, they're on their own because of their power, more or less, makes them alone in the storyline. And which is kind of interesting. They really don't find identity until they come together, and I think there's a lot of symbolism there with the youth culture, how a lot of teens, they don't really find an identity until they can cluster together. So I thought that was really interesting, and I think that's also why this would appeal to teenagers, because it speaks their language in the sense of identity, and identity is such an important thing for teens that to see powerful people not being identified as people until they are a group. I thought that was very interesting. The Avengers, in what way did they become a part of a collaborative network? Well, S.H.I.E.L.D., the kind of like a Homeland Security kind of thing, S.H.I.E.L.D. is really the organization that brings them all together. And so S.H.I.E.L.D. has to network with the different entities or the different Avengers individually to bring them together so that they can kickstart what is known as the Avengers Initiative. So really, the Avengers are just one piece of a bigger organization or a larger collaborative network. And then, like I was talking about before, like really their groupness, as James Smith would call it, or their identity is not even found until until S.H.I.E.L.D. brings them together and makes them a part of that bigger network. The network becomes what drives them and gives them purpose. Even though they want to avenge the Earth or save the Earth before it needs even to be avenged, the whole thing is that they need to be brought together so that they can find identity through their group or through their cluster. I think that this movie would appeal to youth workers simply because the implications that are very real. Like I talked about, the identity thing with teens. I think a lot of times adults feel very similar. As much as they want to act like they don't, or they want to try to be grown up and mature, adults struggle with very similar things that teens do. And I think identity and developing a groupness in a larger network is one of those things. And so I think that that's a huge reason that this would appeal to youth workers, because they want to believe that this is possible. And although superhero movies are so far-fetched, that's why they're so popular, because they make us want to believe, they inspire us that there is something greater, that greatness can be achieved. Loki faced some pretty serious consequences, even though we don't know what those are. At the end of the movie, Thor takes Loki back to Asgard, their home realm, and Loki has to face what we just know as Asgardian justice. So we don't even know what that is. We can only imagine, because Thor seemed pretty hacked at his brother for trying to take over Earth. In the film, Loki almost needs to be redeemed, because although he acts out of a hunger for power and a lust almost for authority, he really is under a larger entity, which, if you don't know comics, you don't know who he is. But at the end of the film, there's a scene where kind of the overlord of the universe makes his appearance, and that he's Thanos, or Thanos. That is who that character is. Loki is just more or less a henchman for Thanos. And so as much as Loki is selfish and trying to obtain power, he's more of a puppet for Thanos, which is kind of an interesting thought, because initially we just want to punish Loki and say Loki's this terrible dude, but really he is kind of just puppets on a string. So he needs help, and by the end, the Avengers beat out the Chitauri, which is Loki's army, and And although it doesn't seem like help, it really is kind of help, because in a way they will be there for Loki if they need to be. If he needs them to be there because Thanos may do something in the future, he will. Or if the Avengers need Loki to be there, there's potential for him to be there. So I think in a way there is a little bit of redemption in that. I don't think that redemption is, in this case, exactly what it always looks like. But I do think it's there. It just looks different. I think the Tesseract in the film kind of symbolizes purpose or identity. That's really a common theme in the film. I mean, even one of Loki's opening scenes, he talks about how humanity just hungers for subjugation, to be subjects to a higher power or a ruler. That's humanity's natural state, is to be on their knees bowing. And the Tesseract kind of symbolizes a purpose bigger, or a greater sense of identity, or even power. It is a source of unlimited power, self-sustaining power, but really what that power is, symbolically, is just identity. They're all kind of fighting for an identity, for a purpose. And the Tesseract just kind of is like that thing that everyone's fighting for, everybody wants. But as long as they're fighting for it and trying to take it from someone else, they'll never really get it. And so that's how it connects with purpose. Purpose is not something you can take from someone else, or something you own physically. It's just more of just something that's earned through confidence and really just letting go. When you really just take yourself out of the control, you really kind of find your purpose. And so I think that's kind of what the Tesseract symbolizes for teenagers, for youth workers, and for disciple makers. It's all the same thing. The Tesseract itself, although it's unlimited power, is only as powerful as the people who need it allow it to be, which is kind of an interesting thought. The hero's journey was all over this movie. I don't remember off the top of my head what all the steps were, but I know there's like trial, and then there's like a mentor, and then they rise, and then there's victory. It just kind of takes a little dip and then goes back up. And I think one of the key things about this film was that they, as heroes, could not rise to the challenge and definitely could not win the opposer, the opposition, until they drew together. Their mentor really wasn't a mentor figure in the sense of a Mr. Miyagi or a Yoda. Their mentor was Nick Fury, who was the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. And their mentors really ended up being one another, which is kind of an interesting twist. But that's one thing that I really liked about it. I don't know if that's how the film was supposed to be, but that's kind of how I took it. And so I thought that was just a really cool thing, how they ended up kind of mentoring one another and working off one another. And so while Nick Fury was involved, he wasn't there teaching and taking him by the hand and showing him how to do everything. They really had to depend on one another to overcome this oppressor and the opposition that rose up in front of them. Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things as a youth worker that you need to learn, is that you're not going to be a hero who can do everything by yourself. I mean, Thor is, the god of thunder, and comparatively, he's Superman of the Marvel comics. Iron Man, insanely rich dude, unbelievably smart dude. That's not good enough either. The Hulk, unbelievable strength. And then you have Hawkeye and Black Widow, who are unbelievably tactical, who are so skilled hand-to-hand combat and persuasion and lying and deceit, and they have all these talents. And then there's Captain America, who is just a strategist and a strategy genius. He knows all about war, all about military, and then he's super strong, super agile, and super fast. But none of those characters can do it on their own. And you can be the best youth pastor in the world, but if you're trying to run a solo act, good luck. You need people around you. You need a team, and that's probably the most important thing that this film teaches youth workers. That's just hugely, hugely important. Yeah, so I think that is the importance of the Avengers. I hope you like it.